Right, we're back up and running. Okay, so we've done a quick rinse out, and this is the third of the threesome that we're having. So, Friday 21st of October still, and so we continue the run of, within the Japanese, of Masetaka Taketsuru whiskey, should we call it. So we've done the Taketsuru Pure Malt, which was a blended malt of the Yoichi distillery, and what we're going to do now, which is the Miyagikyo, I keep mispronouncing it, but I'm sure it's Miyagikyo distillery, which was the second distillery that Taketsuru opened. And if you're coming into this video fresh, I'm not going to repeat myself about Masetaka Taketsuru. Please go and watch the Taketsuru review, which was 2 before this one, and Yoichi, and then come back to this one. Okay, so off you go. Right, nice to have you back. So this was the second distillery that Taketsuru opened in 1969, and it is here on the main island of Japan, which is known as Honshu. And Taketsuru spent 3 years trying to find the right location for his distillery. Now, Yoichi in Hokkaido, which was in the North Island, was a very Scottish distillery. It was, you know, the climate, the geography, the surroundings were very, very Scottish. And with Miyagikyo, it's a slightly different thing. We're talking like rolling hills and forests and clean air and pure water and everything like that. So less Scottish and more Japanese, more of a Japanese style of distillery. Now, when it was originally opened in '69, it was actually known as the Sendai Distillery, and it only became known as Miyagikyo in 2001. So it's relatively new in terms of being known as this. And to be honest, I wish it was called Sendai, because I know I can pronounce that, whereas Miyagikyo is driving me nuts. Whereas Yoichi is much more traditional in terms of traditional how Scotch single malt used to be made. So it was kind of like a straight-sided still with a neck that goes downwards. They were using coal fires to heat the still, which is very hard to control, creates quite a lot of heat, creates quite a kind of like a richer, heavier spirit. Miyagikyo goes the other way and is actually quite forward-looking, so it's computer-led all the way through. Everything's operated by computers. The still itself is a slightly different shape, and there's actually almost like a ring in the middle, where because of the shape of it, it actually cools slightly in this middle section, and the heavier parts of the spirit recondense and fall back down. And whereas in the majority of distilleries, as it does in Yoichi, when it gets to the neck bit at the top for the spirit to run off, normally it runs downwards, whereas at Miyagikyo, it actually goes slightly upwards. And this encourages heavier spirit that reaches the top, doesn't necessarily make it all the way, condenses a bit and then runs back down and falls back down, and called reflux, basically gets redistilled, and you get a lighter character spirit. So, and also at Miyagikyo, they have 2 column stills, coffee stills as known, not coffee as in the drink, but coffee as in the guy that invented them, Aeneas Coffey, Coffey, which allows them to do grain whiskey as well, or you could use barley in it, but it's not the classical pot still shape. It's actually literally a column where it's a bit more of a continual process, but it allows them to do different styles of whiskey there as well. So this particular one, I've taken the lid off, so I'm going to try very hard to spill it. It was actually from a gentleman called Michael Bradley, who I'm sure is in New York, and has sent me a couple of, we're talking 4 or 5 months ago, he sent me these samples through, a good while back, which did include one of my all-time favourites in the challenge, which was the Rittenhouse 25-year-old. So his whiskey collection must be pretty bloody special. This is what the bottle looks like for the Miyagikyo 12-year-old this is. And Master of Malt are selling this for £100 a bottle, so not as expensive as the Yoichi, but not cheap either. And as I mentioned on the Yoichi video, Nika last year, August of last year, turned around and said that their single malt range, aged single malts from Yoichi, were going to be no more, because they didn't have the stocks to maintain releasing those, as well as everything else that they needed to do. Now, at the moment, Miyagikyo is still being released as single malts, but there is fears, suspicions that that's probably not going to be the case either. The Taketsuru vatted malt, or pure malt as they call it, the 12-year-old that I had, apparently is no more. They now have a no age statement, and then a couple of older versions. And the suspicion is that basically Nikka are having to deal with the demand that there currently is for Japanese whiskey, and having to kind of rein things in and go, right, we can't release that, we need to either keep hold of these stocks, or we need to be releasing no age statements so that we can satisfy the demand and actually get more bottles out there. Now, it might be the same price for a no age statement as for an aged version, but there are people out there who are going to buy it, so they're going to sell it. So Yoichi was matured in bourbon casks, whereas Miyagikyo is matured in sherry casks. So, now, the Taketsuru pure malt I really, really enjoyed, and apparently a large proportion of that blended malt, of it being Yoichi and Miyagikyo, a large proportion of that apparently is Miyagikyo. Now, it was an absolute cracker, so I am quite looking forward to this. It is 45%, and whereas the Yoichi was a 15-year-old, this is a 12, but arguably the colour is very, very similar indeed. Maybe not quite as dark, but it's not far off. It's another burnt umber, burnt orange colour. It's a really nice deep colour. Ooh. Now, see, what I've got with this is I've got a comparison now to the Taketsuru, which was the blended malt, and the Yoichi. The Taketsuru was light, delicate, soft. Yoichi, more full-on, richer, bourbon influenced, with a smokiness. This, I'm really trying to pick where that's. Wow, this is a tricky one, because there is a freshness to it. There's sugared almonds in there. There's sugared almonds and banana skins. But then also, it's the smell, it's the smell of dark chocolate covered coffee beans, where if you get dark chocolate covered coffee beans in your hand, they don't smell of coffee, they smell more of dark chocolate, which is quite a pure aroma, but you get the merest hint of coffee beans, and it's sort of like that. There is a sweetness to it, which is the sugared almond character, but then there's also this cleanness to it, which really reminds me of kind of new coffee beans. So it's not a coffee smell, it's kind of a weird purity of that, like concentration. It's a really unusual nose. It's really fresh, but there's bags of character in it. Almost grapes in there as well, and even brandy, but like a really, really pure, clean brandy. Very interesting nose. I might be sniffing too deeply now, because I'm starting to get a little bit of acetone in there. Right, let's go with the palate then. Now, it doesn't have the smokiness that Yoichi's got. This is a lot cleaner. The acetone character slightly comes through, but it works. It's not overpowering and it's not bitter. There's a lovely malty character to it. And again, dark chocolate and dark chocolate coffee beans really come through. It's a most unusual one, actually. It's not out there. We're not talking Fujikai levels of what the hell is this that's going on. It's a very pure single malt whiskey. But there's something about it. There's just this clean edge to it. It tastes quite pure. It tastes difficult to describe without repeating the word clean. There is something about this where it's almost like it's kind of finished off So it's not it's not a whiskey where flavours merge into the other, and it's all a bit kind of like, oh, have some of this and have some of this and let's try some of this. This is kind of, you're getting this flavour and then you're going to have this flavour and then you're going to have this flavour, but they're all very good and they all work well next to each other. And this, you can sort of tell that this has been operated by a computer, but it's a computer that's been programmed really bloody well. And let's face it, who knows how to program computers better than Japanese people? No one. So it's a really, really good whiskey. There's a real kind of explosion just as you're about to swallow, right at the back of your throat. You get hit with a burst of just pure orange peel. It's like concentrated orange peel right at the back of your throat. It's almost like biting into an orange. Get it on the tip of my tongue. It's like biting into an orange with the skin on. So just take, like it's an apple, taking a bite out of an orange and just getting peel at the back of your throat. Which is, you know, it's not an awful flavour. It's just a bit like, whoa, wasn't expecting that. It's a strange whiskey just because it's very, very pure. It's almost like a concentration of whiskey flavour. It really is. It's like you've programmed into a computer, right, whiskey tastes like that, and that. Make a whiskey. And it's gone ding. There you go. And it's kind of like, well, actually, yeah, it does. It's not that it's characterless. It's not that it's soulless. It's just, it's almost a bit too well made. The Taketsuru felt like there was some care and some delicacy, whereas this is just almost a bit too streamlined. It's a little bit too kind of, not by the numbers, but controlled and functional. But it does work really well. It's a really, really good whiskey. I don't know if I'm making much sense, but it just seems to have this like clarity about it, which just knocks a bit of character out. Still a bloody good whiskey. All three of them are good. But if I was to be perfectly honest, out of the three of them, the Taketsuru, which is the combination of the Yoichi and the Miyagikyo, I would go for every time. I thought that was absolutely superb. It's what it's taken is the best parts of those two single malts, and it's taken the best parts of them and put them together and given you double whammy. It's absolutely brilliant. And what it's done is just taken everything down a notch to really let you enjoy the whole lot. Yoichi is not massively full on, but it's definitely got more intensity to it, and it felt like there was a little bit actually being masked. The Miyagikyo is just slightly too clean, slightly too precise about where the flavours are and what they do. Whereas the combination of the two, it ratchets down that intensity of the Yoichi, so it enables all the other flavours to go. It takes the purity of the Miyagikyo, but then allows the other flavours to really kind of bounce off each other. And yeah, I thought it was fantastic. All three of them are great whiskies, don't get me wrong, but the best representation is the Taketsuru, which kind of, I don't know, feels right because it's named after the man that created the whole thing. So why shouldn't that be the best expression? Why shouldn't that be the best representation of his legacy? Interesting. Very, very interesting indeed. I thoroughly enjoyed that. And we've only got a couple more of Japanese to go. One of them I'm hoping is going to be very, very special, and I'm very, very lucky to have. The other one I literally got yesterday, and I'm looking at it right now, but that can wait, because that's an early birthday present for me. So I'll see you at the next one. Cheers.